the police entered Amara's luxurious apartment, they found her lying on the floor, her face twisted in fear, and mirrors were smashed all over the room. The lights were so dim, like they could not decide whether to stay on or off. On the wall, written with a red lipstick, were the words, "Beauty is not mine to keep." Amara was once the most beautiful woman in the city. Men adored her, women envied her, and companies begged her to represent them, but no one knew the truth. Amara's beauty was borrowed, and the price she paid for it was more than anyone could imagine. In the beginning, Amara stood in front of her massive bedroom mirror. It wasn't just any mirror, it was custom made, as tall as the ceiling, with golden edges that sparkled in the light. She adjusted her silk robe, tilting her head to admire her flawless reflection. Her skin was smooth, glowing like she had just stepped out of a magazine cover. Her hair cascaded with perfect waves, and her eyes sparkled with confidence. But as she leaned closer to the mirror, something strange happened. For just a split second, her reflection didn't move with her. She stared back blankly, and Amara gasped, stepping back. She rubbed her eyes and looked again, and the reflection was normal now. Too much stress, she mumbled to herself. Her phone buzzed, and she picked it up to see a message from a major beauty brand offering her another $1 million endorsement deal. She smiled quickly and sent a reply, "Let's make this happen." This was her life now, luxury, fame, and power. Everyone wanted to be her, but no one knew how much it had cost her to get here. 2 years ago, Amara's life had been the complete opposite. She worked as a receptionist at a very big company, sitting behind the desk all day, answering phones and dealing with rude customers. Her boss barely noticed her, and her co-workers passed her like she was invincible. Amara wasn't ugly, but no one would call her beautiful either. She had dark spots on her skin, and her hair was always dry. Her clothes were simple because she couldn't afford anything fancy, but she had big dreams. She wanted to be rich, famous, and admired. But every time she tried to push herself forward, she got ignored. The worst moment came at a company's event one day, after she had spent hours trying to look good, but no one complimented her. Instead, one of her co-workers laughed and whispered to another, "Does she think she's more important to dress up?" Amara pretended not to hear, but tears welled up in her eyes, and she escaped to the bathroom to cry quietly. That's where she met Choma. Choma entered the bathroom like she owned the place. She was tall, elegant, and dressed in a red dress that hugged her perfect figure. Her makeup was flawless, and her presence was magnetic. Amara tried to wipe her tears and leave, but Choma stopped her. "Wait," Choma said, her voice smooth and calm. "Why are you crying?" Amara was embarrassed, but replied, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. No one sees me. No one cares." Choma smiled faintly. "You see, I used to be like you," she said, "invincible and overlooked. But I learned how to change my story, and I can help you change yours." Amara looked at her confused. "How?" Choma leaned in closer. "You have potential, my dear. You just need a little push. And if you trust me, I can give you everything you've ever wanted. Beauty, success, power. But you will be willing to pay the price." "What price?" Amara asked. Choma's smile widened. "Nothing you can't really handle. Don't worry, let me know when you are ready." She handed Amara a small black business card with only one word printed on it, Chioma. After a week of thinking, Amara couldn't stop herself anymore. She called the number on the card, and Choma answered immediately, as if she had been waiting for the call. "Meet me at this address," Choma said, sending Amara a text. Later that night, Amara arrived at a very big and luxurious restaurant. as he searched for Chioma before finally sighting her. Chioma greeted her with a knowing smile and handed her a black velvet box. Amara opened it to find a golden necklace with a very strange symbol carved into the pendant. "This is yours now," Chioma said. "But to activate his power, you must perform a simple ritual tonight." Amara hesitated, feeling nervous. "What kind of ritual?" Chioma placed a hand on her shoulder. "Don't worry. You only need few drops of your blood and just a few words. Follow my instructions, and when you wake up tomorrow, you will be as a new man." Amara was scared, but she could not stop thinking about how much she wanted to change her life. She took the necklace and finally agreed to the ritual. That night, Amara locked herself in her room. She lit the candles Chioma had given her and stood in front of a very small mirror. The necklace felt heavy around her neck, and she pricked her finger with a needle that let a single drop of blood fall onto the pendant. She then repeated the strange words Chioma had written down for her. At first, nothing happened. She stared at her reflection, feeling very stupid. But then, the candle's flame began to shake, and the room grew colder. Amara's reflection in the mirror began to change. Her skin smoothened out and glowed softly. Her eyes became brighter and her features sharper. She gasped, touching her face. When the ritual ended, she looked in the mirror and couldn't believe what she saw. She was beautiful. The next morning, people treated her very differently. Strangers smiled at her and men stared. At work, her boss suddenly noticed her and asked if she wanted to take on a bigger role in the company. Amara smiled to herself. The ritual had worked. But deep down, she thought to herself, nothing this good comes for free. Amara was glowing inside out. People treated her like royalty, and her social media exploded. Brands started offering her massive deals, and invitations to exclusive events flooded her inbox. Life was very perfect for her. One night, as she scrolled through her growing Instagram account, her phone rang. It was Chioma. "You are doing well, Amara," Chioma said, her voice calm but firm. "But don't get too comfortable. Remember the rules." Amara frowned. "Rules?" "Yes, now. You must perform the ritual every full moon," Chioma explained. "The necklace's power needs to be fed, and if you miss it, your beauty will fade, and worse, you will lose everything you have gained." Amara's heart was pounding. "What happens if I stop completely?" Chioma's voice dropped. "You don't want to know. Just remember, your beauty is not for free. Follow the rules, and you will keep everything you've worked for." Amara hung up, her hands trembling. She couldn't just shake the feeling that Chioma wasn't telling her everything. That night, Amara could not sleep. Her bedroom, usually a haven of comfort, felt very strange. Shadows danced on the wall, and the air seemed colder than usual. When she finally slept off, she had a nightmare. In the dream, she stood in front of a cracked mirror. Her reflection was distorted, and her face was saggy and grey. As she stared in horror, her reflection whispered, "It is not yours. Give it back." Amara jumped up from her sleep, gasping for air. As her heart raced and she touched her face, relieved to feel smooth and perfect skin. But when she glanced at the mirror on her bedside table for a brief second, she saw the distorted version of herself from the dream. She screamed, turning the mirror away. The next morning, she convinced herself it was just her imagination. But deep down, she knew the necklace was tied to something darker than she understood. Amara's assistant, Tunde, was one of the few people who treated her like a real person. He had been with her since her receptionist days and often reminded her of who she used to be. One afternoon, when Amara was getting ready for a photo shoot, Tunde noticed the necklace around her neck. "That's new," he casually said. "Where did you get it?" "It's just an accessory," Amara said. Tunde reached out to touch it, but she slapped his hand away. "Don't touch it," she shouted. Tunde looking very hot, said, "Sorry, I didn't mean anything." Amara looked away, feeling guilty. "It's just that he's very special to me, that's all." But Tunde nodded, and he became even more curious. A week later, Tunde did not show up for work. Amara called him, but his phone was switched off. Days turned into weeks and he didn't return. At first, Amara thought he would quit without telling her, but late one night, she received an anonymous text. Tunde shouldn't have seen the necklace. Shocked, she called the number back, but it was disconnected. Amara's rise to fame continued, but something felt off. She started noticing small cracks in her perfect life. One morning, as she got ready for her meeting, she noticed a very faint wrinkle on her forehead. As she leaned closer to the mirror, her heart started racing. Her flawless skin wasn't supposed to wrinkle. She quickly picked up her phone and called Choma in a panic. "Relax," Choma said. "The power is fading because you haven't done this month's ritual. You are just late." Amara's hands trembled. "I thought I had more time." Choma's tone grew very sharp. "Well, you don't, and the longer you wait, the worse it gets. And Amara, you will need to sacrifice more this time. The necklace needs more than blood now." "Eh? What do you mean more?" Amara whispered. "You will see," Choma replied before hanging up. Amara tried to ignore Choma's warning, hoping the effects will reverse on their own, but over the next few days, her reflection grew worse. Her skin turned dull and her hair started thinning. Dark circles also formed under her eyes. Every time she looked in the mirror, she saw flashes from distorted versions of herself. Desperate, she called Choma again. "You know what? I can't do this anymore," Amara cried. "This is not what I signed up for." When Choma heard this, she sighed. "You knew there would be a price, Choma. If you wanted to keep your beauty and everything you've gained, you need to give the necklace something it values more than blood." "And what does it value?" Amara asked, her voice shaky. "A life," Choma said simply. Amara froze. "You mean I have to kill someone?" "You don't have to kill them yourself," Choma replied. "Just bring someone to the ritual. The necklace will do the rest." Amara's mind raced. She couldn't imagine taking someone's life, but as she looked at her reflection, grey and lifeless, she realized she didn't have much choice. That night, she invited her ex-boyfriend, Femi, over for dinner. Femi had always been very kind to her, even when she was struggling. "Are you okay?" he asked, noticing how nervous she seemed. "I'm fine," Amara lied. When he wasn't looking, she spiked his drink with a sleeping pill, and as he passed out, she whispered, "I am sorry," and began the ritual. The air grew cold, and the room filled with a very strange humming sound. The necklace glowed brightly, and Femi's body started to wither. Amara turned away, tears streaming down her face. When it was over, her beauty returned instantly, but she felt very empty inside, haunted by what she had done. That night, after the ritual, Amara lay in her bed, staring at the ceiling. She told herself it was over. Femi's life was gone, but hers was restored. Everything would go back to normal now, until she saw shadows of Femi in her room. Her heart jumped. She sat up, scanning the dark corners of the room. "Hello?" she called, her voice trembling. She laughed nervously. "It's just my imagination," she muttered. But as she lay back down, the whispers started. "You can't hide forever." Amara jumped upright, turning on all the lights in the room. She checked every corner and locked the door. But no matter what she did, the whispers stayed. The next morning, Amara tried to act normal. She had a photo shoot scheduled, and she couldn't afford to look shaken. As her makeup artist worked on her face, Amara glanced at the mirror in front of her. At first, she saw her usual stunning reflection, but then, behind her, she noticed a shadowy figure. It was Femi. His skin was looking very pale, and he stared at her through the mirror. Amara froze, staring at the mirror. "Amara," the makeup artist asked, "are you okay?" She blinked, and the figure disappeared. "I'm fine," she lied, forcing a smile. But as the day went on, she kept seeing Femi standing in the shadows, watching her. No one else seemed to notice him, but he was always there. Amara called Choma that night. "I think I'm seeing things," she whispered, pacing up and down in her penthouse. "I keep hearing whispers, and I think Femi is haunting me." Choma didn't sound surprised. "That's normal now," she said. "The people you sacrifice may linger for a while. They don't always just go quietly." Amara, looking surprised. You didn't tell me that. Well, you didn't ask, Choma replied coldly. You wanted beauty, and I gave it to you. But beauty comes with responsibilities. The necklace must be fed regularly, and if you don't feed it, the spirit will grow restless. Amara felt sick. How long will this go on? Well, as long as you wear the necklace, Choma said. But remember, if you take it off, everything you've gained will vanish, and you will die. Choma hung up, tears streaming down her face as she realized that she was trapped. Days later, Amara received an envelope at her door. Inside was a photograph of her and Femi, the night of the ritual. It showed her standing over his lifeless body. Underneath the single photo was a sentence. How much is your beauty worth? Her hands shook as she read it. There was no name, no number, no instructions, just the pictures. Later that night, she received a text from an unknown number. We know what you've done. Pay us or the world will know too. Amara's blood ran cold. Who could have known, she thought. She had been alone that night. As Amara tried to figure out who was blackmailing her, the whispers in her penthouse grew louder. Sometimes they sounded like Femi calling her name. Other times, like dozens of voices talking all at once. One night, as she prepared for bed, the lights started to shake again. She froze, holding the necklace around her neck. Suddenly, the light went out completely, and in the darkness, she heard footsteps. Who is there? She shouted, her voice echoing in the empty room. The footsteps stopped. Then a deep voice whispered, You are next. Amara screamed, stumbling to find her phone. When she turned on the flashlight, the room was empty, but on her bedroom mirror, written in what looks like blood, were the words, Beauty is not yours to keep. Desperate to break free, Amara began researching the necklace. She spent hours online looking for any information about its origin. Finally, she found an old forum discussing about African artifacts and dark magic. One user described a necklace that sounded exactly like hers, a golden pendant that had granted beauty but required sacrifices to stay active. The post ended with a warning. If you try to destroy the necklace, the curse will consume you. Amara felt hopeless. The necklace had given her everything she wanted, but now it was tearing her life apart. One day, as Amara left the meeting, a man approached her on the street. He was old and had these piercing eyes. You wear the cursed necklace, he said, his voice very low. When Amara heard this, she froze and turned to look at him. Who are you? Someone who has seen what it can do, he replied. If you want to be free, you need to act fast. The longer you keep it, the harder it will be to break the curse. Amara stared at him, unsure whether to believe him or not. How do I break it? The man leaned in closer. You must return it to the one who gave it to you. Amara confronted Choma the next day. She barged into her luxurious office, slamming the door behind her. You lied to me, Amara shouted, tears streaming down her face. You didn't tell me it would cost lives. You didn't tell me I'll be haunted. Choma, staring into her eyes, replied, I told you there will be a price, and you chose to pay it. I want out, Amara said. Tell me how to break the curse. Choma laughed loudly. There is no breaking it. The necklace binds itself to your soul. If you give it up, you will lose everything, including your life. Amara stared at her, horrified. You are lying. Choma leaned back in her chair, her eyes cold. You are not the first, Amara, and you won't be the last. Amara spent the entire night thinking about what Choma had said. If she kept the necklace, she would have to keep sacrificing more lives, and the haunting would only get worse. But if she gave it up, she would lose everything, including herself. But deep down, Amara wasn't ready to accept that her life would end like this. She decided she wouldn't let Choma or the necklace take control of her anymore. I will find a way to break the curse, she whispered to herself, no matter what it takes. That night, Amara dreamed of Femi again. This time he wasn't standing in the shadows. He was speaking with her. You stole my life, he said, his voice echoing around her. Amara shook her head, backing away from him. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice, Amara. he said, his face beaming with anger. But now, you will pay for what you've done. Suddenly, dozens of shadowy figures surrounded her. Each one had very big eyes and long hands, reaching for her. Give it back, they chanted, give it back. Amara woke up screaming, her body drenched in sweat. As she glanced at the necklace, it was still glowing faintly around her neck. She remembered the old man who had warned her on the street. She thought to herself, if he knew about the necklace, maybe he could help her. She returned to the same street every day for a week, hoping to find him again. Finally, he appeared. I need your help, sir, Amara said, desperation clear in her voice. The man nodded as if he had been expecting her. Come with me. He led her to a small and quiet part of the city. The walls were covered in symbols and carvings, and the air was filled with the scent of burning herbs. There are ways to weaken the curse, the man said, lighting a candle, but you will need to confront the spirit you've wronged. They will demand justice too. Amara felt a cold chill run down her spine. What does this mean? It means that you have to face anger and offer something of equal value to what you've taken, he said. The old man gave Amara a ritual to summon the spirit, and that night she performed it in her apartment. As she began, shadows started to gather and forming the shape of people she recognized, Femi and others that she hadn't even realized that she'd harmed. Femi stepped forward, his eyes locked on hers. Why did you take my life? He demanded. Tears streamed down Amara's face. I was desperate. I didn't know what else to do. You chose your beauty over my life, he said, his voice filled with pain and anger. The other spirits murmured in agreement, their whispers filling the room. Amara fell to her knees. What can I do to make this right? Femi pointed to the necklace. Destroy it. But I can't, Amara said. If I do, then I'll die. You'll never be free, Femi said, his voice echoing as the spirit faded away. The next morning, Amara woke up with a burning pain around her neck. She rushed to the mirror and saw that the necklace was glowing brighter than ever. The symbol on the pendant started pulsing like a heartbeat. When she tried to take it off, it tightened around her throat, choking her. She held it, gasping for air, but it wouldn't come off. Stop fighting, the necklace seemed to whisper. You belong to me now. Finally, it loosened and Amara collapsed on the floor, crying. Amara decided to confront Choma one last time. She stormed into her office, holding the necklace on her neck. You didn't tell me this would kill me if I tried to take it off, Amara shouted. Choma smiled. You didn't ask. Amara's hands trembled with rage. I want out now. Tell me how to destroy it. Do you really think you are the first person to ask me that? You are just like all the others, selfish, desperate and weak, Choma said. How many people have you done this to? Amara said. Enough to know that none of you deserve to keep what you have been given. Realizing that she couldn't trust Choma anymore, Amara left, more determined than ever to find her own way to break the curse. As the haunting grew worse, Amara realized the spirit would not leave her alone until she destroyed the necklace. One night, she returned to the old man's shrine. You said I need to offer something of equal value. What can I offer? The only thing the necklace values more than beauty is love. Amara thought of Tunde, her loyal assistant, who had disappeared after seeing the necklace. She thought of Femi, who loved her before she was beautiful. The weight of her choices crushed her. I have already lost them, she whispered. Then you must sacrifice the one thing you still have, the man said, your life. Amara's heart pounded. If I destroy the necklace, will I die? The spirit you have wronged will be freed, and the curse will end with you. Amara stood in silence, tears streaming down her face. For the first time, she realized the true cost of her choices. Amara sat on the floor of the shrine, her head in her hands. The old man's word echoed in her mind. Your life will break the curse. Her entire body trembled. She had fought so hard to build this life, to escape the struggles of her past. But now, it felt like everything she had gained wasn't truly hers. I don't want to die, she whispered. The old man knelt beside her, his voice very calm. You are not the first to wear that necklace, and you won't be the last. But you could be the first to end its power. It's your choice. Amara closed her eyes. The faces of Femi, Tunde, and other spirits flashed before her. She had hurt them, and she had stolen their lives for her beauty. "I need time to think," she said, her voice barely audible. The old man nodded. "I need time to think," she said, her voice barely audible. Amara returned to her penthouse, her mind racing. As she stepped inside, the air felt heavy, and the whispers had grown louder and more aggressive. "Give it back," the voices echoed. Amara covered her ears, trying to block out the sound. Suddenly, Femi's voice rang out, sharp and angry. "You can't run from us, Amara. We won't let you." The necklace around her neck began to burn her skin. She screamed, falling to the floor. "Stop," she cried. "I'm trying to fix it." Whispers stopped suddenly, leaving the room very silent. Amara lay on the floor, gasping for air, with the necklace still glowing faintly. The next day, Amara decided to try one last thing. She called her mother, someone she hadn't spoken to in months. Her mother answered on the third ring. "Amara, is everything okay?" Hearing her mother's voice made tears well up in her eyes. "Mama, I need help," she said. "What was wrong?" her mother asked, concern in her voice. Amara hesitated. How could she explain what she had done? She settled for something very simple. "I made a mistake and I don't know how to fix it," her mother said. "Mistakes can be fixed, my child, but you have to be willing to let go of what's hurting you." The mother's words struck with her long after the call ended. That night, Amara performed another ritual to summon the spirits again. She wanted to speak to them and beg them for forgiveness. As the room grew cold, the spirit appeared again. Femi stepped forward, his eyes looking into hers. "You called us," he said. "Why?" "I am sorry," Amara said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I was just so desperate." "Desperation does not excuse what you have done," Femi replied. "What do you want me to do?" Amara cried. "I will do anything to make it right." "Destroy the necklace," Femi said. Amara looked at him, hesitating. "If I do, I will die." Femi stepped closer, his voice softer. "You took our lives, so you could live yours. Now it's your turn to make a sacrifice." Amara spent the next day preparing for the end. She wrote letters to her family, explaining that she loved them and she was sorry. She deleted her social media account, wanting to erase the fake life she had built. And as the sun set, she returned to the shrine. The old man was waiting for her there. "Are you ready?" he asked. Amara nodded, though her hands were trembling. "What do I need to do?" she asked. The old man placed a bowl of herbs and a knife in front of her. "You will destroy the necklace during the ritual, but once it's gone, your life will end too." Amara sighed. "Let's do it." The old man began chanting, his voice deep and rhythmic. The room filled with smoke as the herbs burned. Amara held the knife in her hand, staring at the glowing necklace around her neck. It felt heavier than ever, as if he knew what she was about to do. "Now," the old man said. Amara gripped the knife and brought it down on the necklace. As the blade struck the pendant, a blinding light filled the room. The spirits appeared, their faces filled with a mix of relief and sadness. "Thank you," Femi said. Amara smiled weakly at him. "I am sorry," she whispered. The light grew brighter, and Amara felt herself fading. When the light faded, the room was empty. The old man stood alone, and the remains of the necklace lying on the floor. The spirits were gone, freed from their torment, and Amara's body laid lifeless on the ground. The old man sighed, picking up pieces of the necklace. "Another one freed," he murmured. Days later, news of Amara's disappearance spread, and her fans mourned her, unaware of the truth behind her beauty. Joma sat in her office, flipping through a pile of potential new clients. She glanced at the shattered remains of the necklace on her desk. "They never learn," she muttered, reaching for another golden pendant. She smiled as her phone buzzed with a message from a new client. Far away, in a very small town, a young woman stared at a glowing necklace in a shop window. It seemed to call her, promising beauty and success. As she stepped inside, unaware of the dark paths that awaiting her,